Hello, and welcome to the delicious recipe here on UPRN. This one is called Lollipops version 2. I had a guest that was going to be on here, but she seems to be down again with COVID again. This is going on like for 3 or 4 weeks there. Actually, you had
Us.
her on there, Laura Lee. There, say hello, Laura Lee.
Hello, Lorilei. I'm from the Angel Rock Monday nights here on United Public Radio Network 105.3 in New Orleans, but we are coming to you from Canada. And yes, I did have a horrific bug. You had it. Your
Yeah,
stepson, my son, had it, and I had it for about 8 weeks. So it
yeah,
lasts. Mhm.
yeah. So there's a lot of little things that I've had time to sort of watch as I've been sort of lying in the on the couch there, and abdominal cramps and muscle cramping and really weird stuff there. And there's been a couple really sort of interesting news things that have been leaked on other sort of media, uh, and it's not being on the mainstream media. It's been on separate independent media, and I have theories on this. It says, and like I said, we just throw everything in the pot and we see how it tastes at the end. These are not. It just this theories out there, and we're not conspiracy theorists. We're trying to find. I guess we're more like truth seekers. I guess in a way, find
Mhm.
out what's going on,
Mhm.
and it just seems sort of really sort of interesting how things have sort of ramped up. And can't say anything about A230 that that type of a agenda that was on there. But there was a part about meat and uh, and trying to reduce it to go plant based. And there's a lot of news organizations that have been pushing this Green New Deal and this green stuff and going into plant based foods. I
And
think
bugs.
Yeah, and I believe Kim Kardashian actually has been having commercials there on the internet because we don't have cable anymore. We got rid of that junk. But the thing is, though, is that she's all in favor and she's pushing this stuff through her social media platform and on commercials that show up on things like YouTube and other social media, Twitter and stuff like that about, oh, yes, these are the best things. These plant based foods are better for you. And so you have to sort of think about this. And this is the part that it's sort of been wrapping through my mind there for because there's the first one I'll go through there was there's a story that came out there today that I saw popped up, and it's they were finding a polio virus in New York State, and I think he said also in Halifax there too as well. And this is a part of a story there. And this goes into a thing about this is that you have to wonder about this all this illegal. Well, it can't. Well, I guess you could say this mass migration that's coming into Canada and to the U.S. through the southern border. Like Canada, all through COVID, Trudeau was allowing planes coming in from third world countries that were coming in here, and you have to wonder about what their vaccination records were, what they were bringing in there, what type of bugs, and they weren't getting treated at all because this was pre-vaccine and then post-vaccine starting trials and then all that other stuff there and we've mentioned her before, right, Laura, about the influx of Middle Eastern people that have sort of really taken over the area that we're around
Yeah,
here.
well, what I want to point out is, first of all, neither one of us are racist, because that's the
Hmm.
first thing sometimes people jump to.
Yeah,
And you are Métis. My children are of Japanese descent, and we welcome and send love to all people. It doesn't matter color, race, gender, whatever you want to talk about. But the
yeah, correct.
reason why you brought this up because I had no idea that there was something that existed called Roxham Road. And it's
Right. That
coming through New York into Quebec. And it was actually Rebel News, an independent news source on YouTube and what have you. They also report out of Australia and Canada. And
mhm.
they were showing the influx of people at the peak of the last 2 years. I'm going to be careful what words we say because we're broadcasting on certain platforms and we have to be careful. And the we don't have the FBI. We have something called CSIS, but we also have the RCMP, which can sort of function sort of like in a CIA type, you know, I guess placement, if you will, in certain situations. But my whole point is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, there was video of them carrying their suitcases over. So,
Mhm.
and Dell, you always say this, and I agree with you 100% that we need to look after our own people no matter where we are
Yeah.
before we extend a helping hand. And
Mhm.
what we have noticed within just our own city, it's not a large city, but it's Thunder Bay, but you have to cross through our city if you want to go from the west of Canada to the east, especially
Mhm.
driving, and vice versa, as well as if you're not going to go through the United States. You have to pass through our city. And we have had, regardless of where you go, um, you're finding that I don't know how to say this gently, but it's very rare to find somebody that speaks fluent English. A lot do, but let's just say people that are Caucasian. And we have a large Indigenous population. That's not a problem. It's very clear, is what I'm trying to say, that we, being only a city of about 100,000, maybe give or take a few thousand, um, the complete way everything has changed. All of our restaurants, everything, the food on the food aisles, everything has changed. And there's nothing wrong. Again, I believe we should always help our neighbor, whomever that
Mhm.
is, globally around the world. Yet we're not helping our own. And I think you've talked about this quite a bit. I'll let you comment it, but you've said it so often. We need to help our own before we extend our hand to other places.
Right. And this is the, I guess, the part out of it there is that uh, when when you have mass immigration and stuff like that that goes unchecked, and that is actually on the news there just before the show this show started there, is that they're no longer registering people coming across the Mexico Texas border there anymore. They're not even they were doing that before. They're not even registering. They're just putting them on buses and just sending them out. And like they said, there's Canada and the U.S. has the one of the longest unprotected borders in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and out to places. And if you here, and if you look at this and you're looking at this, well, I noticed it here in where we live. Areas that didn't have a certain population of people from a certain area, but all of a sudden now they're buying up all the stores and not saying that all of them are poor doing that, but they do in Canada. This is really weird in Canada because you come over and you're given a asylum or given something like that, but you're also given a startup money grant. You're given stuff like that where you can go and purchase stuff. I think I talked about this before about this business carry industries, and it was a place there over by on the other side of town, and a company came or an immigrant family came in, and they were given all this money to start up making VHS tapes. And they worked at, and we and a bunch of guys there back in high school, we all worked there. It was almost like a sweatshop in a way. They were putting all these little pieces in there, and they got all this money. They sold all these tapes, and they sold them to like Sony, JVC, and that. It just didn't have the tape, and it just had the leader in it. And you'd have to do so much production in so much time, and they whatever did all this stuff there, and then within before 6 months was up, they closed down everything, sold off all the equipment, sold everything off, and they just disappeared, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they just did come into the country there
But
too
what
as
were
well.
where were we going with this mass immigration?
Okay, well, anyways, that it, this has been sort of a thing that I've sort of been noticing and sort of keeping an eye on with new old diseases popping up, right? And then you have things like um, Anthony Fauci keep on putting that it's still under the COVID spectrum, and it's just sort of you have to sort of wonder if something different is going on, and the information is still being sort of
Watered
being
down.
sort of watered down or being manipulated, and they're not looking at other things because when we look back at this part there during SARS, that was back in 2003 when or 2002 2003 I believe it was. I was down in Toronto in that time, and I'll just have a funny quick story on that. We were working on Sunnybrook Hospital. We were doing an addition on there, and all of a sudden, I think it was like about like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. and all of a sudden alarm goes off and they start locking down. You hear this announcement that the hospital is locked down, it's in quarantine, and one of the other foreman was inside the building there, and he was in there using the bathroom, and so he climbed out the window and got onto the scaffold and went
To
out
get
and
out.
came to
Mhm.
get out of there. He says, "I'm not staying here because you don't know how long you're ever going to be locked down for." And he said, "Yeah." And then they made this whole big thing that the first SARS was such a major thing. They did a big concert. I went to the concert at Downsview Park in Toronto, and there was like 750,000 people there at this concert. And they had the Rolling Stones, you had Rush, you had AC/DC, you had a whole bunch of different bands. Uh, but they made a big, huge deal, but it then went away really quick. And this one, I think we've talked about this, and it's not conspiracy theory, but it's just thought of mine, something to throw in the pot. Is that you have to wonder if that was sort of the first test run on something and how they can do something, because the Pope also showed up down there too. I think it was just before we had the SARS concert in 2003.
We don't have enough time to go there with that. We'd have to do a
Right,
whole show
but
on that. Mhm.
right, but now you're sort of seeing there's this part with this A230, and they're saying that meat would be a luxury, and like we said, there was this whole thing that was because Kim Kardashian has a huge following that goes around with her and going everybody to eat
But let's throw
bug
something into
meat,
the pot. Let's throw something into the
right?
pot.
But
Those of
the
you, how she became famous many years ago, we know that she had a certain tape out there.
Well, it was a sex tape, yes, that was
Okay, but
marketed by her
wait,
mother,
I'm
yes,
not, yes, but let's throw that out there. Anybody that's looking for some frivolous entertainment, which not laughing at somebody's other expense, but say you're just looking for some entertainment truth, I strongly suggest you check out her partner who was in that tape.
yeah,
Ray
Ray
J's
J,
Ray
yeah,
J's Instagram, because that man is throwing out more truth right now than I have ever seen. I don't know how he sat back and took the blame for this, because they constantly kept putting out there he was the one that leaked the tape. This
yeah.
guy is showing up like the kids are saying nowadays with all the receipts. So it's very interesting, to say the least.
Yes, yeah, that was a sort of an interesting thing because I also saw a documentary on uh, well, no, it wasn't actually a documentary. It was actually an interview, and it was on Howie Mandel does stuff or whatever. And I think it was just like about a week ago. And I'd have to go and find out who the guy was on there, but probably might be close. Uh, Anyways, this guy, a comedian, he got a job. He worked as a butler before he got into comedy and doing all this other media stuff. And he worked as a butler at the Playboy Bunny mansion, and it actually had quite a lot of stories and stuff like that.
Well, the reason why I brought this up is because I'm wondering, like you said, they're placing Miss Kim K in position to be promoting plant-based food,
Yeah.
and there, like, he produced the proof that there was more than one video taken. There was proof that the mother reviewed, so her mother reviewed the tapes and picked the best one and
Yeah.
ordered another version. There's three. He has provided the contract that was signed with Vivid Entertainment. He has
Hmm.
provided all of this stuff. So, and it's not
Right.
hidden. Like, it's not like this is fake news. It's not. So
Yeah.
I'm very surprised. We'll see what happens with this, if she might just sort of fade back in the background for a little while, because I don't think they planned on this sort of development. They may have, I don't know, but
Hmm. Yeah.
truth
Well,
is coming out everywhere.
yeah. Well, this is the part there is that this guy had sort of explained or sort of had told us a bunch of stories there. About things that happened over at the Playboy Mansion, and then there was also talk about things that were recorded, and this came into another video uh, or interview. Is that this actually came out in the Pam and Tommy Lee story there by Seth Rogen there too? Is that none of these places that will go and put anything out is that
They won't.
you have to have signed consent,
You do. You have to have a
right?
release signed. Hmm.
Yeah, because they would never release it that way. And
Hmm.
so when you start looking back into things and about how things start getting released and that the you just think that, oh, people always say like, oh, somebody just did this to go and put it up
They
on
broke in
something.
our safe and stole this tape, which is the story of Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson. Yet, anybody that's aware of what the laws are, and
Hmm.
we know that Vivid Entertainment is a very large adult entertainment firm. There
Yeah.
was a they did a reality, well, it wasn't a reality series. Nothing's really reality, but they did do a series years ago, the behind the scenes on all this, and it's very stiff contracts. Any adult entertainment stars that have come out and talked about their careers, anybody, there's so much of the way in the way of legal paperwork you have to sign with releases. So, and
Hmm.
many lawyers have come forward and said those tapes would never ever have been released to the public without a release being signed. Nobody would touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. I know there was a part of this other story that I was talking about this guy that was at the Playboy Mansion, but
Excuse me.
I can't remember right now. Now I sort of went off
It'll
topic.
come back. Hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just it's really sort of interesting and on things that are going on, and and it's just and now you have like this. You have the primaries that come up there in like November, December time, and you're just seeing how mainstream media news is sort of really trying to villainize the Trump family now. And I had to write down these people's names because I kept on forgetting their. So you had the raid on the Mar-a-Lago
Hmm.
process. Well, and that's what I wanted to say. I'd watched this there today. It's actually a good podcast if you guys want to watch their Valuetainment. It's by Patrick Bet David, and this one that he had on there, Senator Scott Perry, and he had a guy that was an FBI agent that he had left and became a lawyer, and he does lawyer stuff for there, and he was talking about how these things sort of went. And the part with this, I think he was a Senator Scott Perry, I think out of Pennsylvania, and this sort of went into the news there. The FBI, he was in August. He was on vacation at the Jersey Shore with his family, and three FBI shows up there at his place and says, "We need your cell phone." Right? And he's like, "What? What?" And so this goes on. They end up taking his cell phone. He finally gets it back afterwards after he gave them the security code to get into his cell phone, and they copied his whole cell phone.
Why did they have a warrant to take his phone?
Somebody had made a warrant, and the warrant, as far as they figured out, they didn't. Then this is what the lawyer, this FBI ex FBI agent who became a lawyer that does stuff for the FBI because he knows the whole system and stuff like
Yeah,
that, and he explained it all. It's a really interesting thing. It's about 2 hours, and this is one thing that he said. Yeah, you just give them your cell phone, but
that's what I.
you
Yeah.
don't give up your password, right? So
Mm-hmm.
just let them because it'll take them because with iPhones, it'll probably take them a year or 2 years
Mm-hmm.
before they can actually break into your phone and get any of the information off of there. And he was mentioning the different computer scanning tools that they use because he's still involved with the FBI in a different sort of matter.
Mm-hmm.
But this whole thing is that because this Senator Scott Perry was also a supporter of Trump, you had the Mar-a-Lago thing that went down, and now you have this what was her name there? Uh, the New York Attorney General. She is now suing the whole entire Trump family there for fraud, right? So they break into there. Now she's suing them for fraud, and he was explaining the whole thing about how the process is supposed to work, and this is sort of working in reverse. Like they already have an outcome, and they're just trying to find information to get to their outcome that they need,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or get that. And then there's a whole bunch of people that are involved in this that have all been had computers and cell phones that are taken, and there was an interesting part there because there's this whole feeling in the states there with DeSantis in Florida and Trump, and then we're looking about because what's going to happen there come um, this midterms there as who does it the Republicans are going to get to run, and if you look at what's happened there in the 2+ years or whatever that Biden has been running, and if you watch that whole part there with Biden at the Detroit Motor Show saying the pandemic is over, and then all of a sudden the news went like this: no, 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 the pandemic's not over. no, it's just that we're just safe, but we have to keep on taking vaccines. And
I'd be careful what you're calling those.
well,
Just
that was right on the news. This is right on the
I
news.
yeah, I understand.
Right?
Hmm.
No, this is the president said that. He said the
Hmm.
pandemic is over, and then everybody else was on the Democratic side. There are Democratic news things, and they were all for the last couple of days have been saying no, no. It was just meaning that we've got it to a stop, and but you still got to take our vaccines. And that was the whole part that was coming out of there. And so it's not about being careful about it. This is information that anybody can see. I
Yes,
can go. You can go and watch it right now off of
well,
MSNBC,
I
off of
understand.
CNN, off of all this stuff. It's right there,
I
and that's
understand.
off of that news. I'm not telling lies at a school,
Oh, I didn't think you were. We'll talk about off
right?
air. I was worried about what some of the platforms we're on with the bot
Yeah.
system
Well,
because
this
they look for words like that. That's all.
yeah, it's well, it would look for words, whatever. It says I came from the president of the United States. So if he was wrong, then they should go after him.
No, it's not. No, it's just the word. That's all. I'll just use words carefully. I'll let
Right.
myself. Hmm.
So you got to figure this whole thing there. This is the another one that showed up there too. As you have Stacey Abrams of Georgia, I think she's running for governor or something like that. And because you're a nurse, you can tell me like this. She said ultrasounds of fetuses at 6 weeks that have a heartbeat is false. It's just an MP3 file that the it's not really the heartbeat.
Oh dear God, can I pick my jaw up from off the floor? So I'm going to tell people a little bit about me. I know I don't usually talk about who I
Yeah.
am. Clairvoyant medium, crystal Reiki, energy healer, Akashic records practitioner, spiritual teacher, and mentor, and I'm also a registered nurse. Never mind, I have been pregnant 3 times, but I have 2 children. The other thing is, I worked in the NICU, and I can tell you, and we're not.
Tell people what the NICU means.
I'm going to. It is the neonatal intensive care unit.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say I've been so blessed to be there hundreds of times at the beginning of life. And then before I hurt my back, I worked out in the community, did a lot of technical things, but I also did a lot of end of stage life as well. So I've been very blessed to be there at the end. But my whole point is the NICU is critical care for premature infants and very ill infants at birth or if they're born prematurely. And I'm not trying to get into a hot button topic. I always say it's not my
Mm-hmm.
job to judge, but I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, there is no such thing as an MP3 file playing your baby's heartbeat. When you hear a heartbeat, that is indeed a heartbeat. You go for an ultrasound, especially with some of the technology out there. Now, again, I have yet to see 4D ultrasound with a 6-week-old fetus because the way pregnancies are dated, the minute you get a positive pregnancy test, basically they say you're 2 weeks pregnant. Okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
why a pregnancy they say is 40 weeks because they always add that extra 2 weeks on because there's many women that don't really know. And then without getting too technical with a monthly cycle, you can usually be pretty safe with adding the 2 weeks, but that's how they date your pregnancy. So I can tell you that what you see, and they can't do an ultrasound at 6 weeks on a woman abdominally. They have to go internally, is where I'll put it. And I can tell you that that is indeed your baby's heartbeat.
Yeah.
Indeed. And you will see it on the screen. It looks
Yeah.
nothing bigger than a pea, but you will see a little light and a little flicker, and you will indeed hear it if they can pick it up with
Yeah, they
a
were saying that it beats at about 160 beats per minute at that around that area. So
It does a normal heartbeat for a baby. Technically, we are taught as 120 to 160 beats per minute.
right.
There's a theory out there that boys and girls have different heart rates. You can usually tell. I don't know if I agree with that theory. And again, that was when I was working in that field. But yes, an infant's heart rate beats much faster than, say, an adult, or, the older you get, the
Mm-hmm.
slower the heart rate goes, same as the respirations. But that indeed, God, we could do a whole show on this, but I can tell you there is no way that that is an MP3 file.
Well, this is the part that was sort of interesting because this showed up about an hour before the show, and this show, and I guess this whole part of the Democratic Party there that are running there, and this whole Roe v. Wade part that went on there, there still is a group or I guess delegation of people and people out there that have this pro-choice, pro-life, or whatever, that they want to keep on saying that a baby or a fetus, a baby isn't a baby until after it's born and it's accepted and written down on paper.
Okay,
So this is the part because there is some of the states that were out there, and this is the part that went on with this Roe v. Wade. I don't want to go really too much into that. Is that
all I'm gonna,
until
okay,
the mother accepts the baby in some states after the baby was actually the fetus was delivered, she could still abort it after it had left her body, and that was what one of the parts that was out there. And then they're talking about this whole thing is that when does life start? So does it start at conception? Does it start when there's a heartbeat? And that was the whole part of there. And this is what this lady that's running for Stacey Abrams of Georgia, that she's saying that that thing that you get at 6 weeks or whatever, or 8 weeks or whatever when you go in, that is just an MP3 file that's done by the hospital, so
okay.
that
So my
it
son,
gives men rights to fight to keep this child to be. And I thought that was so interesting. It's such a weird way to look at things, and a weird place when you're especially when you're going up for election.
I guess all I can say is my eldest son is 27 years old. There was no such thing as an MP3 file when he was conceived. And you don't naturally always have an ultrasound as a female at 6 to 8 weeks of pregnancy, depending on your obstetrician, gynecologist, doctor. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I can tell you, working on the floor I did before I worked in critical care with neonates and the newborn nursery and maternal newborn, I worked on a floor that did practically most medical treatments you could think of: chemotherapy, telemetry, which means a step down ICU. We did radiation, we did everything, surgery. We also did late term abortions. I did not know that till I started on the floor, and I always tried to say this is not my job to judge. I have not walked a mile in that person's shoes. I was there to care for the person. But what I had the hardest part was we were saving babies at 22 weeks. And yet there were special cases where women were coming in there and again having an abortion. So they had to deliver the baby. The baby was too big to go through the ways they do this. And I also wish it in a perfect world that somebody could witness exactly what happens during one of these procedures. I'm not going to start that. I'm not going to open that can of worms. And I
Right.
think it's always going to be a hot debated topic.
Mm-hmm.
But the MP3 file, that sickens me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what she was running on. She did this on national TV. I just thought that was so interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was funny, and I guess there's a part out there of this, because we're in this sort of this social media. People just get their news through there, and they basically see the hits out of there. That a lot of people don't do the research, and we tell you all the time. What is it, Lorilei?
Always do your research and use many
Correct.
different sources and
Right.
take what resonates with you, leave the rest. And if something's questionable, follow it up further.
That's correct. Yeah. And don't take our words for it there. Check
Nope.
it out yourself.
Check it out for yourself.
That's right. So,
Absolutely.
and that's why it's called a delicious recipe, where we just throw everything in the pot, and maybe you find something, an ingredient in there that you like, and you can make your own recipe out of it, or maybe you enjoy it or you don't. It doesn't matter. We're not here to judge. We're not here
Or
to
tell people what to believe or think. No.
exactly.
Mhm.
That's how it sort of goes. So let's that was pretty much the news. I've been sort of so down anyways. So what have you got going on? You said you had some other topics
Yeah,
there,
I've
Laura.
got some interesting stuff. We've had some interesting developments here in Canada. As most of you, if you are following the especially independent news, it's even in the mainstream media, that Canada is one of the last places to basically get rid of all restrictions, whether you're coming back into Canada as a Canadian citizen or you're a visitor. All of a sudden, it just seemed like there was the Globe and Mail, which we would call, um, I guess
The
I
New
just
York Times of Canada.
no, but I was going to say legacy media. That's the term we're using now.
Yeah.
It came out with our government, the one that's in power, it seems like it's a real reality that we're going to abolish all restrictions. And then we have some amazing, brave people out there that stand up and they use their legal knowledge to help, basically, is what I'll say. And they made an announcement, and I seen this 2 days ago. They went to one of pretty high up in our court, I would say federally, so across the country, and got the all these restrictions defeated. And according to them and the legal documents they're carrying, this will all end September 30th, which I think is great. So that was a
Ooh.
good development. But the other thing that we have been seeing, there was a viral video that came out on TikTok probably about a month ago. A farmer from Saskatchewan. Now, that is a province that's basically third from the west into Canada. Canada is huge. And there was a lot of interesting things we were hearing coming out of there. And he was claiming, he's a farmer, that they were seeing federal water inspectors trespassing, passing on their land. And when they were caught, they had no idea they were there. Um, Sorry, I got a hair in my mouth too. They were saying they were there to test the water. I guess this farmer was informing people the normal procedure is they would knock on the door and
Mhm.
let people know they were there and ask for permission. Now, he is claiming that a certain poisonous chemical was showing up in the water, but he did not provide any proof. But a video was just sent to me before we went live,
Mhm.
and it's out of New Brunswick. And apparently, it was posted 3 days ago that somebody got video of this also going on. Federal government officials dressed in white hazmat suits spraying into the water system. So that
Yeah,
is
no,
sort of
I'm
interesting.
gonna stop you there for a second.
I was going to stop.
Okay, I did two summer contracts when I was taking environmental engineering in college. I worked for the Ministry of Environment and Energy,
Mhm.
and I worked in abatement.
Mhm.
And then there was also the other part that was uh, what do you say, like legalization or enforcement. That was sort of another part of the side.
Mhm.
And my with my clearance there is that nobody could actually refuse me entering any property anywhere in Canada
I
except
didn't
for
think that.
except for diplomatic properties, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so this is a sort of weird thing is that uh, unless you got if you test, this is why I found this story, because this is what I started off the story with, the polio that they were finding in the wastewater in New York State and in Halifax, and then
Mhm.
this part where they said that they're finding anthrax in the cattle fields in Saskatchewan. That's what they're
I
sort of
did say there was no proof of that, that
right.
we are taking somebody's word for it. Did you watch a second video I showed you and sent
Right.
you?
I watched the first part there of the guy going there, but this is the part is that this is why I said that this goes to this A230 uh, thing there, where there's the line in there is that meat will be just uh, a specialty to be done, and that's why we talked about the Kim Kardashian pushing this.
I'm a little bit
Gen-
more concerned as humans where that
right.
water source is going for us to be able to consume it. I wasn't even thinking along. You asked me what I was running across.
Yeah, it
That's what
was
I'm running across.
yeah, it was for farm fields and cattle fields. Okay,
Mm.
and that's why I talked about that whole part about the SARS
Yes,
two
I
thirty
know.
thing, and about the when
Well, how
the
about you
U.S.
carry on then? You carry
Oh,
on with
sorry.
your
No,
story.
I'm bringing this because this all goes together there too. Because this went into this whole part about the tainted beef out of Alberta back just before SARS, and it was blamed on that it was whatever mad cow or something like that. The U.S. did that because they were sort of there was a fight over trade issues and stuff like that. So they made up this story, which was propaganda, and it was actually tainted beef coming from Europe that was coming in, and they blamed it that way to cause this whole commotion. And so at that SARS concert, they had all this Alberta beef there, all these trucks and stuff like that with big huge barbecues selling it super cheap and stuff like that because they were saying like, no, this is wrong. This is how politics and companies and big business and that try to control the populace when you don't find out things about what's going on and who the players are. And it's really sort of important to do that. Like it's it's so sad that we've moved this whole part of free market that has gone to global capitalists and bankers and stuff like that to go and destroy the small businesses and stuff like that. And it's a really a sad state of affairs. And a lot of people don't see this. A lot of people don't pick this history up. And but I'll let you continue with your story there.
I kind of lost my train of thought, so let's move on from this. The other things I'm seeing out there,
Yeah.
and again, with working within the intuitive clairvoyant field, I'm tend to be seeing a lot of people. I'm not sharing this to share fear or anything like this, but it just seems like things are unusually quiet, sort of at a standstill. Now we've got the fall equinox coming up starting tomorrow, or depending on if you practice within the Wiccan community, and I'm probably not going to say it correctly, so please don't come for me. Is it Mabon? I think it's Mabon. Mabon.
I think
M-A. Go ahead.
yeah.
Yeah, so that also coincides with the fall equinox. So I guess we'll have to just wait and see. There's a lot of I feeling into it. It just seems like something's about to shift. Now, I'm not saying it's bad, not saying it's good. It just is very interesting when you can feel into these type of energies. But let's hear
Mhm.
what your thoughts are, because there's a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon before I finish. And I don't really like it because it looks like they're trying to stir up a lot of fear for people because there's a lot of talk about what's going to happen over these the next couple days. Have you heard that yourself and seen it?
Yes, well, you mentioned it to me there, and I saw something that was also on that about September 24th. But
Hmm.
there's a part that came out there today that I saw on the Jimmy Dore show there that this was passed in Texas there today as they overturned social media censorship. So
Oh,
they
really? That was huge.
right.
We should have started with that one.
Right. So it's gone. It went to the appeals court. So the next it has to go up again. There it has to be redone again in the Supreme Court, so that
Is
social
that
media
just for
platform.
Texas? Is that just for Texas, though,
Well,
or all
Texas.
across the U.S.?
Well, it's going out of Texas right now, but this will probably snowfall over depending on what the Supreme Court of the U.S. does. Is that the government or these social platforms can no longer uh, censor materials? Is that it's a big free speech? It's a big free speech thing, and we know what happened here in with JT and the Muppet Gang. We passed through these executive orders to block free speech down. That's why we do our show out of New Orleans. But the thing is, though, is that that's a big sort of part to see how that happens, and it's going to take time. Probably won't be till like next year, till whatever time the Supreme Court does whatever cases that they're doing. But this is the other part that was I saw this on three different independent news sites there, and they were because of this Russian-Ukrainian war that's going on, and now Russia, Putin has put in conscription now, so anybody that's able to fight to go in there,
Well,
people
not
are
quite. I watched it live.
right,
He did, but he's calling on first, he said, those that have prior experience.
right. But that's basically what he's doing is he's putting in conscription, and so a lot of people are going to run for the hills. So there is talk, and we also have Augie Nost, and you said that he'd watched this German telecast or whatever and stuff like that about September 24th going on there. Today is the 22nd here in North America.
I want to clarify something though, since
So
you
let me
mentioned
just finish
Augie.
my
No,
thought.
before you say it, I need to say this. When he shared this, this was not to spread fear. This was to focus on positive energy.
Right.
That anything that's in this video transpire because he didn't
Mhm.
know. Nobody seems to be able to find the whole clip. I'm going to let you finish your thought.
Right.
But it
So when
wasn't
is the
sent. I wasn't sent negatively to inspire fear. I want to put that out there.
right? So this is the part there is that uh, what it was sort of that I had picked up from this, and that you had said there too, is that September 24th is going to be a day nobody knows what's going on there. Now, if you put two and two together, that Russia goes and puts through this whole thing about conscription and putting everybody that's able-bodied to go into the military and that, and people are up and running, you can see that you're going to have a max exodus of people that want to get out of Russia and go to Germany because it's right next door. And you got to figure how bad is uh, the invasion coming through the Mexican-U.S. border, because it is an invasion, and there's been lots of documentation of Venezuela, Guatemala, Cuba letting out their prisoners and just throwing them into the bunch there to get across there. And now that they're being undocumented and unregistered, that puts into a bigger thing. And then you have people don't understand or don't realize this is that the overflow of people that have sort of been gone there. Biden has been flying them, busing them, and sending them out to all these different places. And like we said at the beginning, there, Roxham Road from New York State right into Quebec,
Well, they're
right?
not
And
all coming here. I don't want to make it
no,
sound
and
like.
they're not all coming to Canada, but there's other places they're not just trying to dissipate this huge mass that's sitting there. And so, and the whole part there, when DeSantis set up 50 there up to Martha's Vineyard, which is a sanctuary state area, and
Right.
then they all flipped out
Mhm.
and then called in the National Guard to get them out and put them all on a military base that no cameras have gone there to see if they're still at the military base and what their living conditions are. Because remember, they made all this big, huge thing about kids in cages and stuff like that. And that was the whole big talking part about when Trump is. But the thing is, so Obama built the cages with Biden, and then they're using them again afterwards. So it's 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 a really weird wordplay in politics, and it's so sad to see that so many people only listen to one news source and they only pick up one thing and they don't see the whole picture. And then when you hear them talk about stuff, they're going, "Oh well, no, that's probably conspiracy. Oh no, that's probably not true. I listened to it on this news station. Oh no, this is well, no, you can't listen to one source." That's why I think it's so important. But I'll let you go on there, Laura.
Well, I was going to say is now this video, nobody has been able to find the full clip. We won't
Mhm,
get into it because I don't want to spread the fear narrative. I have even considered it's a leader in the German Senate that is claiming that on Saturday, something momentous is going to happen and you will
mhm,
remember where you were. Now, there have been all kinds of things, including that he misspoke. He was talking about February, that it was mistranslated. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, right? Because I guess what I have to say is why was it put out there? First of all, regardless of the time. Second of
mhm,
all, why is there only 17 seconds? That's very, very suspicious to me. It makes
mhm.
me feel into it, feel like this was put out here to just generate fear. And then the other thing I've even considered that collectively, and I always talk about this on my show, how powerful we are as individuals, as human beings, much more powerful than we've ever believed or been told that we were, right? So
Yeah,
collectively, if we all focus on something, maybe we create something out of nothing energetically.
yeah.
Could
Well, that was
possibly be happen.
well. That's the big thing. There is that fear is a powerful thing. Your mind starts thinking in different things,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the whole thing about propaganda. The part with Goebbels, Edward Bernays. I've talked about it many times there, and the whole part there is you to sell a lie, you just propagate the lie, right? And you keep on going and going and going. And people that don't look it up or find out the truth or find out the source of it, they believe it as truth, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
everybody else starts talking. That's why the whole big thing why they didn't want to really do the part with social why they started banning people on social media is because people were given the counter argument of what the narrative that was being pushed, and that's why the biggest thing that went on there this is just my thought anyways on it, people out there. But when you don't have
Mm-hmm.
discourse, you don't have debate, you don't have a counter argument or a counter ideas to something that's going on, you end up with a very one-sided thought process, and you get a bunch of people that are misinformed. And they see how they use this part there, that all the this is misinformation. Well, no, the part that the platforms were doing was creating misinformation, right?
Hmm.
Because they weren't given the counterpoint to the point. And this is that I think there was even a news show called Point Counterpoint or something like that.
Hmm.
I think they even did it on Saturday Night Live there too. They made a parody of it. But
Hmm.
yeah, so what time we got there? Well, we got a couple more
I
minutes.
and again, I would never tell somebody what to do, but for my own self, that if I feel that we all have a brain, and as especially as adults or even young adults, regardless of what age, we have a brain and we can think for ourselves. We don't need to have somebody tell us.
Yeah,
So to me, I use the analogy of, besides doing exactly what we've been repeating over and over here, my own research, and I went with what resonated and didn't. If it was censored, and I think the majority of people, as time has gone on, that's what you went and looked up because you knew, why are you hiding it?
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, exactly. That comes into a lot of stuff. There is that when when government or people in power don't give you the truth off the bat, you become very skeptical of where the what information you're getting there, and that's what causes a lot of people. It's not causes, but it's smart to go and question everything. You say on here too, question everything. That's why the little guy down there in the corner, or that corner, that, which
Hmm.
way does that
I
go?
see him. I
That
see him.
that that guy,
Right hand side. Yeah.
that guy
Yeah.
waited in the corner there.
Hmm.
Question everything,
Hmm.
and that's the most important thing you can do. And do your own research. So tell them where they can find you, Laura.
Everybody could find me on Monday nights here on United Public Radio from, now think about this, 5 to 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. And this week, on Monday, I have Reverend Cheryl Hines coming on. She's quite a gifted medium, psychic, intuitive. She's got quite a little following on, not little, I'm saying that, endearingly, on social media. She's written a great couple of books we're going to talk about. Very interesting lady, happens to be a fellow Canadian. So please tune in. I'd love to have you join me, be part of the conversation. I like to involve you if you join in the conversation live here on the YouTube channel, UPRN, our UFO Paranormal Radio, or the Facebook page as well. If you ever want to book a reading with me, show idea, anything like that, get a hold of me. You can reach out to me on facebook.com/The Angel Rock. And thanks for having me, Del.
Awesome there. So we got one more week there before the end of September, and then I believe the station
Spooky
is
month.
doing. And then October is all Halloween spookathon for all of
Paranormal. Yeah. Well, not
paranormal
spookathon.
spookathon. Yeah.
Mhm.
So anything with cryptids and stuff like that, and whatever. So I'm not sure what I'm doing there for next week. Next week's show. I'll see what I find out
Well,
there
we're
during
going
the
to
week.
do, we know we're going to do with our friend Tom Riley from Ireland,
Yeah.
and we're picking out spooky paranormal type things. We are going to try and sneak in at least one show, because Dell and I are doing this together with Tom,
Yeah.
about the Da Vinci Code, the real truth behind it, what the fictional story
Yeah.
by Brown was based on. So we're going to try and do that. I know we've talked about, we just got to reach out to Tom again and pick out a date.
Okay, well that's it there. Stay tuned there. I think I'm not sure who it is. Red Pill News or
Yeah, yeah.
is
Red
it
Pill.
Red Pill
It's this.
News there? Yeah, check it out there.
Tune in.
UPRN, delicious recipes, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for all that were tuning in.
Okay.
Appreciate y'all. See you
Thank you.
later.
Bye.